when I started doing customs, I was constantly told I was destroying the shoes. There was just like a transition where it went from like, oh, these guys are ruining shoes to like creating one-of-a-kind pieces of artwork that you wear. And I think that took a long time. Now it is seen as an authentic art form. On my 13th birthday, I got a job in a bakery as a janitor after school, a cashier. I think I was getting $8 an hour, and that was to buy Jordans. As I got older, shoes represented one of a few things. One, an emerging subculture that I was part of that tribe. Then you move into, okay, now it's big and popular. Now I want to have things no one else has. It got to a point where a lot of us had been doing this for 10 or 15 years, and we're like, holy shit, these things that we paid $150 for are worth thousands. It has worked for me best my entire career when I know that it means something to me that I'm making, because then I know it'll mean something to someone else.
Before we get stuck in this episode, I just want to thank you for being here. I started this platform to spark conversations that inspire, creatively, professionally, personally, and everything in between. So if you want to support the mission, the best way is to subscribe or follow, whether you're watching or listening, or in a more tangible way with Unofficial Goods. It's a range I designed with artists in mind, and you can find it over at futurehistory.co. This will help other creative minds discover us and ensures that you won't miss any incredible guests we got lined up. Because when this passion is shared, it grows exponentially. So thank you. And now let's get into it. With spray paint, when you're doing that kind of work, it is an all body encompassing. Yeah, it's like a dance that you're doing.
When I smell spray paint walking down the street, I know what brand of can it is. Like, you know what I mean? So I think but without that, I wouldn't be like who I am today. But I made a decision to get away from it a long time ago. But the scale side of things is interesting. For me, shoes is like the perfect scale. And then I moved to like canvases. But it's now like just the application of print is something that I consider a lot with scale, because if you paint my prints, I have like a set of signature prints that I use for a variety of different things. And if I paint them tiny compared to big, the impact is so enormous when it comes to like the application of it. So now I've actually, Sabotage mentioned it to me in Singapore years ago. And then recently I've been blowing my patterns up, because just because you're painting them small and hyper detailed doesn't always give you a better result. So playing with that's really been helpful, and from a time saving point of view, pretty elite as well. It looks more considered.
At least when you're using the sneakers, you don't have to think about the scale. You don't have to think about just the shape that it's going to take. It is already set for you. And the panel's already decided as well. So there's like, you are restricted to exactly this every time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I could give you an hour on that. But so I think back in the day when we started doing customs, and like there was only a couple of us in the world that were like doing it as a job, breaking panel convention was like a no-no. So we really stuck within the framing. And the reason we use Dunks and Air Force Ones is it gives you this picture framing effect, right? Which is the ultimate high ground, low ground contrast. It's like built into the design of the product, which is why you see so many more Dunks and Air Force Ones or Jordan 1 customs than you do a Chuck Taylor or a Superstar, because it's a flat canvas and you don't get that, I would say, contrast of patterns as easily built into the structure of a product. Whereas if you're doing a collaboration on a shoe, like one of the ones I just mentioned, you would play with things like materials and stuff, because the variance there is much stronger. So it's you do have that, and you do have scale. However, I would say the challenges with footwear is the three-dimensional shape, the application of artwork over that. You know, if you're painting a portrait and you have to account for grain, texture, shape, curvature, it can be really, really tough. And then the high ground, low ground of the panels, although it's like millimeters to the eye, it completely destroys something if it's not done perfectly. So for now, I don't even think about it, because I've done thousands of pairs of shoes. But back in the day, it used to just scramble my brain trying to figure it out. So,
do you ever take them apart?
Personally, no. I made a decision like pretty early on in my custom career to not go down the path of trying to do reconstructions. I figured, you know, jack of all trades, master of none vibe. I was like, I'm going to be one of the best custom painters in the world. And I'm like, that's my thing. That's what I'm focused on. So when I've done that, I've worked with other people to do that part for me.
Yeah. Is there like, okay, so with custom sneakers, Are they designed to be worn?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. So for me personally, I don't paint shoes that can't be worn.
Okay.
There's been like a very small amount of exceptions to that rule, but I've had guys play in the NBA, the NBL, the NRL, the A-League, the EPL in my boots. So if you can play in my boots in a professional sporting event, you can wear them down to the pub or to a sneaker freak, a swap meet, or to a sneaker con. So 100% made to be worn. The challenge is a lot of the ones that you see online aren't. And I really have to hold back, man. Like when I see like people getting like props for something, I'm like, that's going to get destroyed the second you wear it. So part of my briefing process is, do you want it to be worn or not? Because it actually completely changes what you can and can't do.
So it limits the application, like the materials that you can use. Or I guess not the materials, it's the paints.
Yeah, paints, like even just the way that I paint. So like you won't be able to tell, hopefully ever, but there might be like between 9 and 14 coats of a yellow for it to look yellow, because I paint it so thin that it bonds so well to the product that, when you wear it, it won't flex or crack or chip. But that takes just painful like process of going over and over and over. Now, if I know you're never going to wear it, I can hammer on thicker loads of paint. It'll still have a similar end product, but I can get through it like twice as fast.
What sort of paint are you using?
It's so there's a few. So they're an acrylic. So they come from the primary one that we use. You can use Laco, but we also primarily use a brand called Angelus. They're from Boston. It's a tannery it's a couple hundred years old. So when I started doing customs, they only made like 12 or 14 colors. Now there's hundreds because they've like clipped on to how big this is, and they've worked with us in the past around like colors that we want them to produce or whatever. And it's a really bondable acrylic, but what works is the prep work. So you have to pre-treat shoes with acetone so they become porous, kind of like the same way you have to scar a aluminium can to print a Coke label on it, you know, same process.
Dude, this is something that I was speaking with Woody about, and I still haven't quite got my head around it. The fascination with sneakers to begin with, like, what do you reckon it is about sneakers that, well, okay, so you're a collector in general.
Yeah.
But what do you think it is about sneakers that has drawn us as a culture? Because there are some people that are proper mad about it, right? Like, they're camping overnight to pick up a drop, and some of them are going for thousands. They're purchasing them for no other reason other than just to say that they have them.
Yeah.
They're not buying to be worn. Right? So what do you think it is about that? Because you collect other things other than sneakers. Well, what's the collector mentality? That's something that I don't really understand myself.
Lucky you. Yeah. I wish I didn't have it. My house looks like a shoe and toy museum. Look, so I think there's two parts, and I think there's a really significant inflection point from a transition in where it came from and where it's got to now. When I started collecting sneakers, so I'm 39, at 13, on my 13th birthday, I got a job in a bakery as a janitor after school, a cashier. I think I was getting $8 an hour, and that was to buy Jordans because I looked up to Michael Jordan so much. I played basketball, and I felt like if I had Jordans, I would play better. I mean, that's like 13-year-old mentality, right? And then I'd shoot around all day thinking like Michael Jordan like might drive past, or like, you know, you have that mentality. And I think as I got older, shoes represented one of a few things. One, an emerging subculture that I was part of that tribe. So it was a new set of friends and relationships. Back then, you didn't have the beauty of shopping on the internet so easily. So when you traveled the world, you brought back things that no one had seen before, or that were super rare. And like a lot of Asia would get like Asia exclusives. The UK would get UK exclusives. So you could come back with things and go to an event and no one had them. You almost built an identity around franchises. So there was a guy who would be the Nike ACG guy, or the MX 90 guy, or the Jordan guy. And it was really like an emerging subculture similar to like hip hop in the 80s and stuff. Whereas like if you were in the ground level, like you kind of knew everybody. And like I met Woody, I was second in line at the first ever Sneaker Freak or Swap Meet. And I was like a kid. I think I was like 18 or 19 when I met him the first time. So that to me was like the initial thing, which was like this aspirational, I want to be like this athlete. I want to have a rare thing. And this sneaker culture is kind of becoming popular. Then you move into, okay, now it's big and popular. Now I want to have things no one else has. So now the collecting element isn't just buying a shoe from Foot Locker or JD Sport or Provider at the time or Dakota or all these stores that we had in Melbourne. It was, now I want stuff from overseas that no one else has had, because now I want people to know like how hardcore I'm into this. And then you go, okay, now it's about chasing scarcity and rarity. And then it got to a point where a lot of us had been doing this for 10 or 15 years, and we're like, holy shit, these things that we paid $150 for are worth thousands. Like I had all the original Nike Yeezys because I was at the party. Like, but I didn't buy them because I thought I would resell them one day. I bought them because I was a huge Kanye West fan and I worked for Nike, and I was like, I want every color. I remember I bought Galaxy Foamposites at discount because I worked at Nike, not knowing they were going to be $1,000 the next day. I just bought them because I'm a huge space nerd. And then it became you can make money on this type vibe. So that's when the lineup started happening, because until then, we just got shoes because we knew the guys who owned the stores. So you would either just rock up in the morning with a coffee, or they'd sort of hook you up the day before or hold you a pair behind the counter because you'd bought hundreds of pairs there. I got up to having 500-600 pairs in storage.
No shit.
Yeah. And then it became a money thing. And then, us boomers in this kind of like sneaker thing were like, oh, kids are lining up now. I'm not about this shit anymore. If I can't get it through a hook up, I'm done. So, I think that kind of killed sneaker culture for a lot of people my age, because it became this like, oh, it's about money, not about the identity and the connection and this is like what I represent. It's just a bunch of kids trying to fleece cash.
That's inevitably how it gets there as well, right?
And it's not a subculture anymore, right? So, yeah.
Because I know that was a few years ago, like over a decade ago, I was talking to a friend. He works in IT, sneaker collector as well. And so what he did was that he just created a bunch of bots. So when products were dropped, boom, 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 gone. Yeah, so it's and he got him. Actually, his love for the sneakers is what propagated that, but then his intelligence and his smarts about it and his wit was what made a business out of it. So then he just saw it as like profit. Yeah, and that's essentially what it turned into.
A lot of the kids in those lines lining up, they were just getting a chop out, like cash up front to get the shoes for someone else. Like, so it became like a borderline, I wouldn't call it organized crime, but it was like organized fleecing of like drops.
Organized fleecing.
So, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like, I get the collector appeal. I understand like the rarity and the scarcity and wanting to have something that is unique. But I suppose it just comes back to like how powerful the brand is, right? Like Jordan as a brand, not saying Jordan brand, but just the person himself. And then just having that first release, just attaching his identity to a sneaker. And then from there, because right now, if you're talking like your work that you do are primarily just, what do your canvases that you're working on, they're only going to be maybe a couple of different. It'll be like Jordans and Air Forces. Is that what you're doing?
Primarily. And Dunks, yeah.
And Dunks, right? So that's like when you're talking about sneaker culture, when you're talking about collectors, the collecting, I mean, sneaker culture, there's so many ways that you can segment that and break that down. But when you're talking about as a collector, there are, and you as an artist, it's just 2 or 3 different sneakers where there's fucking thousands that you could potentially be working on, but they just don't have that same resonance. Yeah. Like you're not going to be painting on like maybe shell toes. Maybe?
Yeah, I've done if you name a brand, I've done a shoe for that brand, most likely, or for someone in that kind of silhouette. So the reason those shoes work, one, they're just iconic. Yeah. So I'd say those 3 shoes would be in the like Hall of Fame for like top 10 most famous shoes of all time, with like a Chuck Taylor and a Superstar, maybe a Suede and a few others. But I think they're just like inherently like ubiquitous with sneakers, right?
Jordan
like,
1. Jordan 1's a silhouette. You say sneaker, that's the thing that pops into mind. Right? Like it's that black and red, white sneaker. That's exactly what a sneaker is.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, I won't go super nerd, but like Air Force Ones tanked when they dropped. Like they didn't work immediately. So they didn't work till years later, and then like New York birthed that shoe and it became what it is today. Dunks came off the basketball court.
They're not very comfortable, man.
No, they're not. I mean?
They're not practical.
But God, everyone's had a pair, basically. Yeah. So, yeah, and look, I mean, when I go through the custom process, I don't predefine the shoe selection. I let the person select it. But if I am asked what like I would prefer, it's usually one of those 3 for that very simple picture framing reason, which is I try and create you a product that you could imagine actually getting produced one day, and those shoes give me the best opportunity to do that. So
like I was saying, I get the appeal of the collectors, the collection part, but it does baffle me that the shoes that are iconic and are the staples of sneakers, they're not practical in many ways. Even like with shoe design, because that's something that I've really been going down, because like the shoe tech has improved significantly over the years, right? And you know, they have their buzzwords, they have their copyright of whatever they want to call it, but it's just, you know, whatever sort of plastic or rubber compound that they have as the midsole. But the design themselves, as far as like ergonomics go, why do you think that hasn't changed enough in terms of it being something that is not just looks good, but also functionally or ergonomically correct?
Yeah, so I mean, like all the shoes we've talked about were performance shoes when they came out. Chuck Taylors were basketball shoes, Suedes were basketball shoes, Dunks were basketball shoes, Air Force Ones. Steve Moneghetti used to run marathons in Air Max 87s and Air Max 90s because they were the best technical running shoes available at the time. I would say like retros, when it comes to casual styling, because of the material set and shape, lend themselves best to a tailored pant, a casual pant, a barrel pant, a baggy pant. I think though, if you look at what's happened in the last like 3 years, give or take, with the rise of Gorp Core and technical running from other brands, you do see people on the street now wearing Solomon, Hoka, you know, these other brands as their everyday wear. So, you know, I go to Paris in January, it's wet, everyone's wearing Gore-Tex, Solomons, or no one's really rocking around in a Dunk or an Air Force One. So I'd say it has transitioned, and with that transition, you do get better materials and better cushioning, better ergonomics, better long-term wear. Like if you are wearing like a nitro foam Puma product or a Vomero X or something every day, or a, you know, Bondi, whatever you want to wear, one of your Max Stack sneakers, and then you go back to an Air Force One, you're like, holy shit, this is so different. But also if you wear that every day, you don't notice the variance. But, you know, it comes and goes. Like, you know, every 10 years is like this cyclical thing in sneakers. Like you can see it like clockwork, and we're exiting, you know, this like Y2K era, VizTech era at the moment. And we're going to go back into classics again, probably towards the middle to the back end of next year. And then who knows what comes after that. But it's just cyclical, and people will get back to their Chuck Taylors in 18 months because they're like, shit, I haven't worn Chucks for a while, and they go with everything.
I don't think they really go. I think that they're kind of just, they always linger. They're always there. And like Converse are constantly just pumping them out. Vans as well. You know, there's a constant flow, at least like an undercurrent of having like a staple canvas shoe.
They never disappear, but their peaks and troughs are quite far apart.
Even like Doc Martens, because they kind of tapered off for quite a while until maybe in the last, maybe quieting down a little bit now, but probably about 5 years or so, 10 years ago, they picked up again, you know, and it was just that standard leather boot. Yeah,
I think post-COVID, there was this really interesting thing. So pre-COVID, I think fashion was really about individual identity, and there was a lot of color, a lot of flair, a lot of variance, a lot of like smaller brands emerging. COVID kind of killed a lot of people's like individuality when it came to like fashion and clothing and streetwear. Like, and you look at the post-COVID era and everyone's in this Melbourne uniform of like triple black again. There isn't a lot of, I would say, individualism in like an event. Like when I go to like a fashion event or a streetwear event, like it's quite a lot of the same sort of thing. I feel like that's starting to change again. You know, where I see a lot more color come back, a lot more vintage come back, a lot more like identity. So I think we're getting to a point where it's going to be more fun again, because like at the moment everyone's wearing an Arc'teryx jacket, you know, the same sort of like tailored pant. Like it is quite like accidentally uniform, which is actually where sneaker culture was so much fun in the first place. It was the complete opposite of that.
That's true, man. I think because when you say that the rise of it was 80s, 90s, that's when it was starting to come up, right? And you look at the designs, and there's a lot of the influence of that has just been coming through, the 80s and 90s. That outlandish sort of color palette has been coming through. And you are right, like the Y2K aesthetic. And I'm fucking like, I don't understand how that has come back, man. That was atrocious then.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they've done it any better, done it any sort of service?
No, look, I mean, I didn't wake up 2 years ago thinking I'd see Juicy Couture and Ed Hardy on shelves or people again.
Ed Hardy's back?
I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it was a successful
Dutch.
launch. Yeah, that tried. That didn't work either. But yeah, I think like there's just this nostalgia element too, right? Which is like trying to recapture like some of your glory or past or things that you hold true to you. It's why Lego released a Goonies set 2 weeks ago. It's because they know 40-year-olds are the ones with money. So I think it's like a connection to that. And then for kids, it's new, it's bright, it's colorful. And I think that sort of pushes us back towards that individualism, which I think is fun. Even though I dress in all black, like I look forward to seeing it. So
is that your staples? You're always black?
Yeah, I pretty much anything, or like I say I dress in a Carhartt palette. So it's like, It's like, you know, army drab green, tan, black, grey, navy.
I try to introduce more color.
Yeah.
But then as soon as you put like one black piece on, like I almost went all black today, actually, almost.
Yeah.
And but yeah, once you put one black piece on and you're trying to match it, you're like, okay, black, and then black.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing, like I always say, like I could wear the same outfit 10 times, but with 10 different pairs of shoes, there's 10 different outfits. So I usually wear really bright, colorful footwear.
You can get away with that easily, right?
Yeah,
Black
and triple black everything, and then
Yeah.
colorful footwear is the vibe.
And that's also another thing is that like with the footwear, it can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to pair. It's sometimes intentionally contrasting with everything, right? So you could be wearing that Carhartt palette, and then boom, just something that's outlandish. And I see that a lot. And when in New York, you have someone they could just dressing, you know, pretty nice, pretty dapper, Jordans.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I know. Jordan's is a really interesting business case at the moment because although the volume that they sell is still so high, I would say they're nowhere near what they used to be from a popularity point of view. I mean, Concord 11s are on sale online at the moment. Like so are great Jordan 5s. Like that's blasphemous to me. But yeah, you see people getting married in Jordans and I'm like, what's going on? You know?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, man, because like the Jordan brand, I'm thinking like it's so iconic now that like the people that are wearing Jordans don't even have that association with him being a basketballer, right? Like he's a brand. And there's really no one else that has that kind of appeal in any sport. Kobe somewhat, but you were right in saying that like you don't think that Kobe would have... I don't know. You might be right. There's no way to know.
It's controversial, yeah. So I think...
but his sneaker was already the top.
So my point of view on Kobe is that the love and reverence for Kobe today wouldn't be as high as it is if he had not tragically passed away. So...
He was... I would say that he was already the 100%. Most loved basketballer.
I would say, though, if you weren't a Lakers fan, you called him a ball hog, a bad teammate... You know, there wasn't like he was like tenacious to a point that it was like, you know, you didn't really love him if you weren't a Lakers fan.
No,
let's be honest.
He has the most ride or die fans though.
100% he does. Yeah. And all across the world, not just like Western either.
Yeah.
His run, Kobe 4, Kobe 5, Kobe 6 is goated. They're three of the best basketball shoes of all time. What he stood for outside of basketball was great. But I think like if you look at players trying to establish what they have today, and Kobe fans will rinse me online for this, but like I think that there is this, you know, the highest selling week for musicians is usually the week after they pass away, right?
Yeah.
So it's this whole thing of like, is Kobe brand the next Jordan brand if Kobe's still here today? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get to those heights.
No, it won't. No.
But another one is like LeBron. I just don't get why that. His brand isn't really where I think he deserves to be.
Yeah,
he doesn't really have a brand.
Yeah, I think it's like I struggle. I think LeBron's really interesting, right? Because I think the fact that one of the things that gets overlooked with LeBron is that he's in season 23 and he's borderline scandalous. The biggest scandal he has is like going on TV to just say what team he was going to go on, right? It's insane when you consider the level of his fame and the amount of people that would have been coming at him with everything that could have destroyed his life every other day, I would imagine. It's like that part of it to me is completely overlooked. Like it's incredible. I think there's a couple things, right? So back when we probably watched basketball the most, you had a very small amount of players who had the opportunity to grow outside of the sport. Now Nike's got 6 signature players. There's probably 9 brands in the NBA that have like signature athletes. There's at least one guy basically on every team that has a signature shoe. Social media has broadened everybody's access to everybody. The only person you ever really saw on the news in highlights in the 90s was like LeBron and maybe Dominique Wilkins or maybe Clyde Drexler or maybe a couple of other guys. I think that...
You mean Jordan?
Yeah, Jordan. Sorry. Yeah. So I think... now, and LeBron doesn't have that same level of, I think, charisma and like aura that Jordan had for a lot of people.
Because he's too clean.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone knew Jordan wasn't like sparkly. Like imagine if Jordan lived in the era of social media. It would have been elite. Well, for us as a fan, it would have been so funny. So I think, it's hard. And then, just access to everything now. Like the amount of superstars in the NBA is crazy. Every team has at least one superstar.
Yeah, I think, that's a really good point. And to that, you can also then like looking at it from a brand point of view, because, you've been involved in brands all over.
Yeah.
And Nike holistically, globally is still number one, right? Still doesn't look like they're going anywhere. They've lost a bit of a slice of the pie, but the thing is that they could easily just claim all that back, right? Like they have the legs to just weather this storm for a little while.
Yeah.
And whether or not these other brands, like if you're talking, okay, whichever sport it is, like running, they've probably lost a bit of ground, but in every other sport, I guess like in football, soccer, they're still, are they number one?
Yeah, they'd be pretty close. Yeah.
Because they were competing with Adidas. Adidas was
they'd be
number
one.
one.
Yeah.
Adidas is probably number one, but they've been there for a while. But then as soon as Nike decided to get involved, they fucking...
I was at Nike at the time, yeah. It was a big mindset shift. Like, I was at Nike when football became a real serious thing and skateboarding. And I remember both times the narrative was like, Nike are just culture vultures. And when I say football, I don't mean like, leather legend boots. They're like, it was the emergence and push of the mercurial vapor and all of those, which then really grew them through a lot of like the football lens. They were like, called culture vultures. Like, it isn't where, no one wants you. Now they have the biggest selling boots in the world. They're bigger than every other skate brand by 5-10-fold.
Their skate shoes look good, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, they changed the game for skate. But it's happened before. This like Nike not being like. Here's the interesting thing. I had a conversation with a shop owner like 2 weeks ago, and he's like, Nike's off for us big time. It's way down. They're still 55% of our footwear sales, right? So it's like, and last time this happened, in the matter of a couple of years, they released Freeze 360s and Flyknit. So like the things that make Nike special isn't really the shoes to me. It's the R&D and it's the marketing. People forget, in my opinion, like they're one of the best marketing brands of all time. They have iconic commercials. Very few brands, in my opinion, can say they have one iconic commercial. I could name you 10 from the swoosh.
True.
And then, the band commercial for Nike, the Charles Barkley stuff with Godzilla, like it just goes on and on and on. And I think that connection was bigger than product. And then now it's what everyone's trying to replicate on social media, right? Is like, it's not about, how highly produced it is or how seamless or perfect. Does it make someone feel? Do they connect to it? And it's like they mastered that in the 80s with marketing campaigns on television.
Their marketing is really good because they toe the line between being really audacious, right? Being like almost pretentious, but at the same time welcoming and inviting for all to participate. They're not saying that they're necessarily better than anyone else because they want you to be part of their team, but they're also saying that our team is better.
Well, they also have this, like, they have an internal set of maxims. I won't go through them all, which is like it's like the brand Bible. But the slogan that, you always live by at Nike is if you have a body, you're an athlete, right? So it was a really interesting experience to work there from like 18 to like 25 or whenever when I was there because, I've worked at other brands since. So now I work at Puma, I worked at Converse, I've done artwork for pretty much every sneaker brand in some way, shape or form. But they were so like definitive in that mentality, which was like that then created everything for them to live from. So they lived on that one sentence to some degree, and then everything you do within the brand has to tie back to that.
Yeah, and then because it is that attitude, that mentality is always the thing that's going to keep them at number one, right? Like because it's just like the goal is just to maintain that dominance. And I think that if you don't have that, then you're not going to get there. and any other brand can't have that because they're not that. Right? Like you need to carve out your own space, which they've done. But it might just be a matter of like, this is the space that you are going to hold. And this is as much as you are ever going to hold because of your brand. Your brand says that you will only be a 5%er and that's it. And that's not a bad thing, man. The fact that you're able to play in the game because not many can.
No, I mean, there's probably only 3 giant sportswear brands in the world that like play across pretty much everything, right? Which is Nike, Adi, Puma. And then you have a lot of other brands that exist in a variety of areas, but they're specific to like 1 or 2 categories. Like to have that level of dominance over multiple categories is crazy.
Any sport you want to
everything,
participate in. I remember that they tried to get involved in MMA, and I thought that was. I mean, like, good on you for trying.
Yeah.
Good on you for trying, but you're dealing with a bunch of personalities you don't want to associate your brand with.
Yeah, so doing podcasts for me is really interesting because it's like inside football. I have so many NDAs. There's so many things I can and can't say. I know quite a bit about that from a background point of view because I've got a lot of friends in that sphere. Look, I mean, Nike used to famously, whether or not this is a fable, I love this, which is they used to sponsor the athlete Mike Tyson fought. So when he knocked them out and there was a photo, you'd see a swoosh in the photo. I love that story. From an MMA point of view, back when they got into it, the sport has evolved so much. Like MMA now they're athletes. They're not psychos who like to fight like it was 20 years ago, or guys trying to prove that karate was better than jiu-jitsu or, anything else. These guys now are lifelong athletes in that specific sport. However, there is always this element of people finding it very jarring. And boxing used to be like that as well in the 60s and 70s when it was coming up. It was seen as like brutal and super damaging. And I would argue against a lot of people comfortably that MMA creates less damage on the body over a long period of time than boxing. But it's a hard one to endorse, right? That's why Reebok just sort of jumped off that as well. The breadth of athlete is incredible. The lack of merch sales is there. What do you sell to people who like the sport? Like no one's walking around the street in MMA gloves, and if they are, we're all crossing the street and walking away from them. You don't wear jerseys or the shorts, so merch options are limited. The cut through of the athletes into mass market is limited. Like you don't have to like basketball to know who Michael Jordan is, or LeBron James or Kobe Bryant, and Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey are probably the only 2 that really cut through to that. Like, I can be in a movie level or whatever, right? So that sport's a tough one.
It's a tough one because also like they have to know that the lifespan of an athlete, an MMA athlete, is short and it can end quick, like on a dime, right? And it happens. So, LeBron has a loss, no big deal. Loses a championship. Okay, next year. And then, just start the new campaign, release the new range. No problem. And if he loses that again, no problem. We've got another year.
Yeah.
MMA fighter, they probably have maybe a good couple of years, at best, a good few years, a good run. But then that downhill spiral, it's tragic.
Yeah.
And they all get it. It's inevitable.
Yeah, so LeBron's won 19% of all finals series that he's been in, like finals, right? And if an MMA athlete lost 5 fights in a row, it's like career over.
Career's over.
So it's hard. Vince McMahon and the McMahons had this like interesting point in time where there was like this discussion around Shane and them wanting to buy them at like UFC back in the day. And Vince's famous line goes something along the lines of, why would I want to buy something I can't control the outcome of? Which is why it's so much easier to build a superstar in the WWE than it is in MMA, because you can build Conor and then he loses 2-3 fights in a row. And then it's like, oh God, that's much harder. And then he goes off the rails and you're like, okay. Then he throws a chair through a bus window and you're like, oh my God, okay, how do we like manage and market this? It's hard. And now the sport's so big, there's so many athletes, so many fighters. I find it as a fan much harder to connect like I used to because the investment in individuals is less.
It's less. And I also kind of feel that it's more controlled, because I don't think they want another Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
I don't think they want an athlete that's going to outshine the sport. And then through that, then I think that just the way that they are marketing the athletes is very much secondary to the sport itself.
Yeah.
Where I think that the NBA is the opposite. I think that a lot of the other sports is the opposite, but it's not one athlete that is bigger than the sport. It is a combination of all the athletes, right? Like if they decide just to pack up and go elsewhere, it's fucking done. The league's done.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. They've got this thing at the moment that a few Australian brands have, and it's not a great analogy, but, people call a cooler an Esky. Esky's a brand, right?
Yeah,
People call
yeah.
a barbecue a Weber. It's a brand. Like, the UFC is continuing to invest in the UFC because a lot of people call MMA UFC.
Yeah.
So, like, you can see why the branding narrative and the investment makes sense. Obviously, in Asia, you have One and all these other incredible organizations. But, like, for a lot of people, when they talk about MMA, they don't. They say UFC. So the money piles in there, and then the TV deals now that they've got are enormous. And I don't think I had missed an event up until, like, the very late 200s. Like, I had seen every card
same,
ever.
actually.
And then now it's like I just skip and watch highlights.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't paid for a pay-per-view. I'm definitely one that is trying to tap into a stream.
Yeah.
And now I don't even do that.
Yeah. It's hard, man. Like, you got shit to do. It's a whole Sunday as well. And then now with these international cards starting at like 4 a.m, it's tough.
I don't mind the Sunday. I actually.
It's a good Sunday.
Before kids was fantastic.
It's a great pub Sunday.
Yeah. You're starting like at 10, 11
Yeah,
o'clock.
yeah,
and
yeah.
You finish
You're
up
done
about
by
3 or 4.
Yeah. You've had your Parma, you're half cooked, you just go home to sleep. It's great.
Yeah, but no, I find that even that investment is pretty hard now because there's you get a lot of cancellations, the fights change.
Yeah.
And then most of the time you're spending like that 5 or 6 hours, there's only a couple of minutes of that. It's actually just fighting, and the rest of it is just nonsense, just ads.
Yeah.
Anyway, besides the point, I do want to get back onto the art side of things by enjoying the sports chat. What do you reckon? This is something that I like us to pick the brains with basketball fans, and you being someone that is a fan but also has seen how things work behind the scenes. I don't feel as though that, because you just mentioned that Vince McMahon doesn't want to get involved in something that he can't control. I think that there is that mentality across all the different sports.
Yeah.
But it's just something that is not, that they don't want to speak about. Like, we know that wrestling's fixed. It's like, it's not a secret. It's a narrative. It's a story. It's a soap opera.
It's a soap opera for men. Yeah.
I feel as though the sports are driven in that way as well because there's just too much money involved. There's too much riding on the success of certain players. So the chess pieces that moved, I'm not saying that there's necessarily fixed, but I'm saying it's fixed.
Yeah. So, I think the narrative that most strongly pushes that recently is the Luka Doncic trade, right? And then Cooper Flag, like the number 1 draft pick going to Dallas, is like Look, I don't subscribe to conspiracy theories. I spent a lot of my life drinking, thinking we not landed on the moon. I'm no longer stupid. But like, it is hard to watch that as a fan and go like, surely that's fixed for the Lakers, right? Because the thing about basketball is they've got 3 or 4 teams that aren't teams, they're brands. The Lakers is a brand, like it's globally renowned. Yep. You can go to China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, anywhere in the world and see someone in a Lakers t-shirt. Inevitably the league does better when the Lakers are doing well. So I think to some degree, from a corporate point of view, there would be, we need LA to win. We're going to do All-Star Weekend in LA. Like, there'd be that kind of manipulation on a longer term scale because, like, if the Charlotte Hornets win 3 championships in a row, it's not good for the NBA.
Yeah.
No one's like
OKC one's like, okay.
Yeah. They're a really interesting use case, like, because their global notoriety got built up through Durant, Harden, Westbrook. So now it's like they're kind of established as a well-known team, and Gen Z connects to them extremely well because the majority of players are young and they don't rely on that nostalgia. Like, you don't meet a lot of like 14-year-old Chicago Bulls fans.
That's a good point. You will definitely not get that.
No, they're Golden State fans.
They would have missed the Derrick Rose era as well.
Exactly. So they're Golden State fans or they're OKC fans. That sort of narrative shaping and sort of has worked for OKC, and they've got a dynasty. Like, if they don't win another 2 in the next 4 years, it'd be incredible. They've got the Clippers first round pick this year, so if the Clippers keep tanking, like, they're just like they're going to have to give away talent. They've got so much. That's corporate, right? Like, it's a corporate conversation. How far manipulation goes with all these betting scandals and everything that's happening at the moment, it's interesting to watch. But these conversations always come down to money.
They always do. And this is the thing, right? Because a big part of that money is not just the jersey sales, but we're talking about just the personal and the private endorsements that these players have, right? So, like, there's a big vested interest. Nike has a vested interest in these athletes doing well and being in prime locations as well. So Doncic moving over to LA is like, come on.
Yeah.
You know,
The interesting thing is, like, Doncic doesn't sell a lot of shoes. You know, and that would shock a lot of people. Like, Anthony Edwards sell more shoes, Ja Morant sells more shoes, Sabrina sells more shoes, LaMelo Ball sells more shoes. Like, I think just being great at basketball doesn't sell your shoe anymore because there's so many options for shoe sales. And brands do get it wrong. Like, Jordan Brand were going to sign Kevin Durant. They signed Greg Oden. So, like, it doesn't always work out. It's the same reason that you take someone in a draft over someone else. You try and anticipate their potential and where they're going to go. Like, no one would have thought Cade Cunningham would get a signature Nike shoe 2 years ago.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, they just announced it like last week. So he's like the 6th guy on the roster now that has one. And it comes out next year, I think. So, like, but Cade, you know, going through into like Detroit, no one, like, but why? Well, Cade's super popular online. Like, the younger generation are connected to that team. They're an up-and-coming talent base. He's become undeniable. And at some point in time, he's probably said, and it's just pure assumption, that other brands have come to him and said, we're going to give you a signature deal. So then if you're the swoosh, you then have the option to go, okay, we're going to match it, beat it, give him a shoe, or he's going to go to Puma, Li-Ning, Anta, Wade, 360. Like, the list is endless. So then it becomes about protecting assets and talent.
Moving back.
So different to art.
Yeah, it is. Only because I guess that, like, you're kind of playing in the space of both, though.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I suppose, like, you know, when your knowledge and your insights into how things operate in the behind the scenes, surely is going to have some sort of influence in the way that you operate your art practice, right? Like, you know what is hot. You know, like, from a sneaker point of view, already just your knowledge of, like, what talent is. Okay, so when you say that, like, being good at basketball doesn't necessarily sell the shoe. So you're already going to have a good understanding of what shoes are going to do well.
Yeah.
And then what shoes are going to do well doesn't necessarily even mean the shoe's going to look good.
Yep.
Right? So there's that aesthetic appeal, which is, for the large part, very much disassociated with what is successful or in terms, or what is popular.
Yeah.
Rather. Do you have a shoe or a range that you think should actually be doing better? Like, as your canvas?
Oh, as in, like, from an art point of view?
From an art point of view.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, like, I guess everything up until this point has been, like, the Mathew Fabris side of my life, right? Which is, like, the corporate, working for brands, consulting for brands. Like, from an art point of view, it is, I think, like, the Chuck Taylor always stands out as one because, like, I think I always used to say this when I worked there. If you asked 100 people to draw a shoe, 50 people would accidentally draw a Chuck Taylor.
Okay,
like, just go draw a shoe. Draw any shoe. I think 50 of them would draw a Chuck. That's that famous. I think because it's seen as, like, it's already...
It's a shoe.
It's already anything to everyone. Like, every subculture's owned it. Metal, grunge. Like, everyone's had, like, a Chuck Taylor run. Skate. Yeah. So, like, you don't really ever get asked to do customs on Chucks because it already has every story connected to it. So, like, if I had to pick a silhouette that I didn't get asked to paint more often, which
deserves more.
Yeah, which I'm kind of happy about, to be honest, because they're hard to paint because they're flimsy and, like, they've had decades worth of people just drawing on them in Poscas. So that's what people would assume a custom looks like on that shoe. And, like, it's terrible. But yeah, I think, like, that shoe is already so iconic and so everything to everyone. It doesn't need custom.
That's a great point, man. When you say about, like, the story that it's already sort of, like, excuse the pun, but woven in the fabric, right? Like, of all the different subcultures.
Comic book nerds, everyone's got, like, a Chuck's a shoe for everybody, I think.
Fuck. Yeah, and I would think that from as a canvas, it'd probably be one of the easiest to try to work with because you have a lot of space.
It's literally just canvas.
Yeah.
Like, literally, no pun intended. Like, even a Chuck 70 is just a heavier gauge canvas. So,
have you ever thought about designing shoes?
Yeah, I actually have. So I designed shoes for a Korean company called Rui back in the day. So there's Sekure D range of footwear and stuff. I did a Jordan brand collab in 2011. I've done a bunch of sneakers for Globe as well. I was never trained in it. I, like, literally just worked it out as I went and trained myself, learnt all the programs. At the moment, I'm enjoying the brand direction, brand guidance side of the responsibility I have at Puma. And I think if I was to ever one day go back into like full-time art, I would almost try and do the Salahi Bembry thing, which is more of a consultancy role where you design products for brands rather than work for one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just the way it is, right? Because you have an overarching brand, and they're going to have their design philosophy.
Yeah.
And I think then with your knowledge, it's just a matter of then just trying to understand. Because you got a good understanding of trends.
Yep.
And seeing the patterns and the peaks and troughs of how they operate. And then with that, you'll be able to then forecast and probably almost like design something that is, I don't want to say future-proof, but just like almost like predicting that this is coming. And by virtue of doing that, you're then going to be influencing the way that the culture will move in the direction that will go. Because like with something like the Y2K aesthetic, right? That one I didn't see coming back. I should have seen that coming back because, like, you know, there's always going to be something that is, I guess, retrofitted 20 years or 20, 30 years down the track. But that one there it's aesthetically, I don't think works well on any kind of level. But yet it came back. Now, do you think that there is just that automated return of an aesthetic just because it is part of that cycle? Is that how it goes? It's like it's just inevitable for something to come back?
Yeah, I think sometimes I make the joke. I don't think I look 39, but I'm like, I've been in this game for like 20 years. And I'm like, I've just seen this movie already 2 or 3 times. So like part of what my responsibility is at Puma is like, well, yeah, what are we going to invest in and forecast in from a trend point of view that we believe that we can amplify and be a part of authentically, that then will resonate from a brand point of view in, you know, better revenue, better sales, better growth. From a personal point of view, when it comes to Sekure D, I inevitably live on a level that was built on graffiti. So I can't draw a portrait. I'm really good at color, shape, and customization. So when sneakers started exploding, I was like, shit, I can make one of ones. This is my thing. And then for 3 or 4 years, there was only me and Sabotage in Singapore in the world doing it for a job. Then vinyl toys started blowing up. And I'm like, hey, I can do this with vinyl toys. Got on that real early and then started working for Kid Robot after like a year and a half. And I did shows with Medicom and designed a Mickey Mouse toy for Disney and all these things. And then you go, okay, then I went digital art. Like this is going to be a thing. So I think part of my skill set is like, I'm a big movie buff and a big trend interest person. And I go, okay, like from a Sekure D point of view, what's my position in that? Like, how can I make that fun for me? Because the best success I've ever had in everything I've done is if I like it. So I'm like, you know, Rick Rubin says he's not a musician. He just has an elite taste level. Like, I'm not Rick Rubin, but I'm like, if it's fun for me, I know other people will probably like it too, because I'm a child of the internet and 90s baby, and like I'm a collector idiot. So I'm like, there's a lot of that, you know. So I think those kind of things all put together into a recipe, you go, okay, I'm pretty confident that I've seen this movie before. I'm pretty confident this is going to be next. I know at a commercial level what the return and opportunity is at a Mathew Fabris level, and then at a Sekure D level, I go, okay, where do I think this is going? How can I apply my skill set? How can I get in early and build the relationships with people that are building this sort of subculture so that I'm authentically part of it, not shopping for corporate opportunities or jobs or exhibitions, but like a part of building something that then becomes something bigger. And like I've done that like 4 times now and sort of reinvented myself through 4 different versions of my career or eras to some degree.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily reinventing, because I think it's just more of a, you know, you have this Sekure D almost in and of itself is a brand, right?
Yeah.
And it just so happens that it's very closely associated with sneakers. Because that's been the platform of your expression for, that's like, I guess the biggest chunk of your creative expression is on sneakers. So there's that affiliation. But at the same time, you play in a space that is, you know, you have your canvas, you have your toys, your digital drops as well. So then it's just more of a trying to establish the Sekure D brand and what does Sekure D do, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of like, you can just play in whatever space that you want. And I think that's probably the point that you're getting at, is that you don't really, you're just bringing in the interest that Mathew has, and then how can you then just like pull that together and almost like cross collaborate or see where this Venn diagram is of your interest.
Yeah.
And then just like this little slither here, this is my space.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it because I love it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like if you're working at 11 o'clock at night in a little studio, you better love it because, you know, we've all probably been on a creative endeavor that we've fallen out of love with. And it is super painful to be doing the extra long hours when it's not something that's driving you anymore, or maybe you don't see what the end goal is. So like that flexibility to be able to do so many different things is kind of what keeps me going. I'm very lucky that where I'm working at the moment also gives me the facility to be creative as well, because a lot of the brands in our industry do not allow you to be creative outside of work hours, which has happened to me in the past as well. So I'm very lucky. I'm in a like this little space where I'm corporately educated enough to not go and do a campaign for a competitor brand, because that would be just incredibly stupid. But there's a variety of ways for me to, you know, do other things. So it's fun, it's interesting, it's exciting. And when it's not anymore, I just won't do it anymore. So, or I'll find something else to do that still is applying the same colors, same pattern, same narrative. But I've never chased trying to be the most famous at any one of those things, because you know, I would argue, like from a sneaker point of view, if you line up my like collab history and partner history, I'd be top 5 maybe all time. But like everybody else ahead of me has millions of followers, because like I get in early. I for some reason have the strong reputation with brands and corporate. I'm super professional. I can be trusted. I deliver. I do more than just the product. I do the creative, the direction, and everything. So it's I kind of do find that sort of back of house side really interesting, and I'm not super driven by the social media side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that it's I don't really want to frame it as a necessary evil, and I think actually for me, for the longest while, I have been framing it as that, and I don't think that that's a healthy approach to it, because you know there's us that are at this age bracket where we look at social media as like we see it as a necessary evil, whereas that there are the younger generation, they just see it as like it's just par for the course. It's just what it is now, right?
Yeah.
Like if you know that if you're going to have someone coming up in the game and doing custom sneakers, they could be doing it strictly for social media.
Absolutely.
Right. So they are like they're thinking, what can I do to promote myself on this platform? What is the little slither? And they might be thinking, what's my interest? Sneakers, I like to paint, and then there it is. But, you know, we don't do things necessarily for the gram, but I kind of feel as though that mentality needs to shift as well, that we should be doing it for that. Almost, in some cases, almost exclusively.
Yeah, so I'd streamed for a long time. I streamed on Twitch, I streamed on YouTube, I streamed on X. Like I went through that like phase recently trying to do that, and I felt a little bit like I was a caged animal, and I didn't really enjoy that so much. I think when I started, I didn't realize when I decided I was going to transition from like allegedly illegal graffiti into graffitiing footwear, that I was also a social media manager, a photographer, a graphic designer, a web designer, like all these extra things. More, all I wanted to do was use a paintbrush, right? And ironically, it was almost all those other things that informed my ability to succeed quickly compared to others. When people were doing customs back in the day, I was one of the first people to start like really photographing them professionally, so it looked like an authentic product drop, not just something on a studio table. And then I had a point of difference from that. I also built a narrative for the first 7 or 8 years of my career around being anonymous. So I had a mask. My second favorite color is pink. So there was a story online for years that I was female, and I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I just think this is hilarious that people would make that correlation so strongly. And I was always looking for like how I can have this like angle on social media to like be either ahead of the curve, more professional, or slightly different. Now, like I honestly, I really think it's necessary if you want to grow quickly, but like I'm not interested in doing vlogs and all this sort of stuff anymore. But if I was 22 and starting and I didn't have the career and the connections and the reputation I had now, I would be almost over investing in the digital side. I'm so burdened by everything I have to put out looking perfect that I can't mass create, and I over analyze my output to the masses significantly. Whereas you give me a pair of shoes and paint, I don't even think about it. I just go. Whereas if I'm taking a photo or creating a video or something, I'm overanalyzing the shit out of it because I'm stressed. Whereas now I look at the people that are being successful, they're doing the opposite. And that actually makes them so relatable and so easily connect to. But I have this like built-in barrier in my own like subconscious of being like, is that like gallery quality? Like, is that good enough? Like, is a work in progress 13-second clip okay to put up? But all the artists I see thriving now, even the guys who are starting brands, they're the face of it, and the content is almost as much about them. And I definitely miss that.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between the approach that we have had, I suppose, growing up throughout, and just like starting career in, I guess, the early 2000s onwards, is that the focus was on the output, and the focus was strictly on that. Like, if you're an artist, if you're creative, that it's what you can produce rather than looking at the process and the growth and the development. And that's what we've found through social media. The things that used to, like when we first jumped on it, it was about showing the finished pieces.
Exactly.
We would get on and we'll try to take inspiration from other people doing that. But the connection is almost lost through that. I want to ask you, there was something that you said that right then that was really interesting, how you started off in graffiti and now you're graffitiing shoes. What I thought was really interesting is that, do you think that there's an element of, I don't want to say defacing the shoe, but I guess like defacing the shoe.
Yeah.
Because you call it graffitiing. So like just changing it, the state, or leaving your mark on the shoe. Do you think that that is the appealing part of it?
Yeah. So when I started doing customs, I was constantly told I was destroying the shoes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I would say, me, Mosh, Sabotage, Methamphibian. There's a couple of us that I would say are probably have a very big role in and responsibility in customs being so common as it is today. And back then, the majority of us copped a lot of shit for it because a lot of people were considering it to be like destroying the product or whatever, right? You transition into like, late 2009, 2010, somewhere there. The National Gallery of Victoria has an exhibition. I take Gentry Humphrey and Gary Cook through from Jordan Brand, and like they're complimenting the customs and stuff. And there was just like a transition where it went from like, oh, these guys are drawing with Poscas and stuff, which I never did, just to be transparent. Okay. And like ruining shoes, to like creating one of a kind pieces of artwork that you wear. And I think that took a long time. I think when I won Soul Collector Customizer of the Year, it was like 2007 or something. So like back then it was only just like starting to get magazine coverage. And then now, like, I think sneakers are just so common as well. And you don't have that like elitist attitude of, rarity and scarcity being the only predefining factor that makes a piece of footwear interesting, that it has sort of faded away. And now it is seen as an authentic art form. There's customizers who work at Jordan Brand full-time doing PE colorways for players. Mosh has started his own brand. Sabotage still paints full-time. I still paint every other day. So we've built careers off it, but, I don't think graffiti was probably seen that way originally either. It was definitely looked down upon, and we were told we were destroying the products. And then now people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for us to make them a pair of shoes. But that's been nearly a 20-year journey.
That's the parallel, right? Because like before it was street art, it was graffiti. And graffiti, I guess, just by definition is just to be tainting something, is just to vandalize, right? And because there was a section or a grouping of those graffiti artists who were accomplished artists, that they had particular style and aesthetic that did enhance the visual appeal of that wall or that landscape. Yeah. So then it could be, how that translates to the shoe, that of course the first time when people started doing it, because you have like, for example, the Jordan shoe, which is already something that you could deem as like perfect design, right? Maybe not so much in terms of functionality, but like in terms of the aesthetics.
Yeah.
You're talking about the paneling and just the shape and the curvature of all the panels. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So to then put something over that is to blemish that perfection. But that's just the way that it could initially be received. But then it goes from that to being, altering, to manipulate, to enhance. And I think that using that as the canvas, and you play off that, because now when you think of your work can only be in the sneaker in the sneaker part of things. Your work can only be showcased on already something that's iconic, right? Like you can't disassociate yourself from that. You're always going to be tethered to that. So it's almost like it has to be then perceived as being enhanced, right? Because you're an artist.
Yeah, and the brands overall, with the exception of a few times, and there's been some like legal cases lately with Nike and the shoe surgeon and a few others. Like, I've actually received nothing but support through the entirety of my career, because you're actually amplifying the product. And if I put a Insta video up and it gets 500,000 views, that's 500,000 Puma views or Nike views. It's not just Sekure D views, right? So it comes down to the communication, and the brands now have recognized the power of the artist as well. I mean, it was obviously done through SB and all the collabs, artists like Cause and Futura and Stash, and they kind of helped establish that collaborative culture that people like me and Sabotage and Mosh and all these other guys ended up like getting this second wave of like access and visibility to brands through. So there is like this like inherent connection to the two. If I just invented my own shoe tomorrow and started painting it, it wouldn't be as desirable. There is an amplification and connection to the brand. And I think what I do is like through Sekure D, if I'm making you a custom pair of shoes, my job is to make you your dream pair of Nike shoes that Nike would never make using my artistic skill set. So every pair of shoes I make has some sort of Sekure D element. It will always have my patterns, my prints, and I use whatever story you're trying to tell with my skill set to execute it on that product. Whereas if I'm painting a canvas or a mural, I don't have that third entity being built into the process. So the brand side is the canvas. So there's like this extra connection on how I try and create the storytelling. But if you come to me with Goonies, Willy Wonka, Sin City, Carlton Football Club, LA Lakers, my version is to interpret that brand with my art to give you something that, you know that brand will most likely never create. And for that reason, the brands holistically, through the majority of my career, have been hyper supportive, and I haven't really received too many challenges.
Your work then is in the purest and the most saturated form of collaboration. Because when you mentioned, you dropped a few names that have had official collaborations with these brands.
Yeah.
Would you even separate yourself from that? Or is there a way of distinguishing what you do and what they do? Because it seems like yours is just as closely tied, or if not even more so, because they are at the mercy of the brand, right? So like if Nike was to bring on board another artist, it's going to be more weighted towards Nike, right? They're going to have, I guess, like more of a say as to what the finished product is going to look like, as opposed to Cause saying that, no, I want it to be leaning more towards my thing.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, you have their thing. Their thing can't be, it's going to remain as it is, but you have the freedom to add as much of you as you want. Yeah. So I guess that even in a more truer form, that yours is it's a deeper sort of collaboration.
So when I look at a custom as more Sekure D than brand, but I look at it as a collab more brand than Sekure D, if that makes sense. So I'll try and explain that. So like my passion and my like purest form of like creative output is the one-of-one custom, because I feel like I'm using that canvas to tell my story, right? Like I'm really only making it for one person. I'm not trying to mass produce this product. However, like, so I have designed shoes for Globe. I have designed shoes for Jordan brand. And I have done like custom commissions for every brand you could mention. Now, the overarching element in that is the brand. Nike said it to me quite clearly at the time. Globe didn't, but they're looking for something for you, right? So if they're going to give you a global platform and amplify your name across the entire planet, what are they getting out of it? Is it connection to an authentic subculture? Is it connection to an audience that they otherwise can't connect to? Like, what are they getting, right? Because they don't need me to sell shoes. They don't need a majority of artists to sell product. So when you're designing that product as well, you also have to be acutely aware that you're designing it to sell 500,000 pairs, not one. So when I designed my shoes for Globe, I was like, I need to make a shoe that 14 to 24-year-old men want to buy, and we're going to try and sell 150,000 pairs. So it was a different creative process. And so the brands require that level of interpretation for that product. So do I do collabs, and do I look forward to doing collabs? 100%, because there's an opportunity to gain access to things that I can't otherwise buy. However, if you're asking me like what the most authentic Sekure D product is, it's always going to be the one of one, because there's a customer element, because it's made for them. So the story's for them. And I'll do things like on the medial side, which is the inside of the shoe, which no one ever sees from a photography point of view, hide their names, their kids' names, birthdays, like hide little details in the design so that it's even more special to that person, that only me and them know are there. Or I'll stitch it on the inside of the tongue or on the footbed or something. You can't do that on mass-produced products. So that level of storytelling and connection, the same way that you can probably do that on a canvas, on a custom, is the most exciting. But the upside and the desire to work with brands comes from a completely different place.
Dude, that's really interesting, because there's a different hat altogether.
Yeah.
You know, there's like the goalposts are different, right? The objective is different. So you have to have a different sort of level of thinking, and that's going to strictly, like, it's going to ultimately just affect like the whole lot. Like I've had conversations with artists. And this is going back just to the last one that I recorded with. His name's Kenny Lee, and he is a founder of this company called Light My Bricks, where they actually, in a strange way, there are a lot of parallels between his business and yours. He creates lighting installations for Lego builds.
Yes. Yep.
So essentially, Lego have infinite number of different collections, and they'll say that, okay, this particular one I think will work really well with some extra, zhuzhing up.
Yep.
So for example, the DeLorean, adding some LEDs into the DeLorean just to give it a bit more of presence. Yeah. So in a similar way to what you do, that he uses Lego as a canvas for his tooling. And we were talking about how do you go about just like towing that line of playing that strategic element of knowing, I guess, like what is going to sell versus how much play do you want to involve. And I suppose that you're playing in this whole, in the entire spectrum. You're looking at, if I'm going to design a shoe for the mass market, it needs to appeal to this number of people versus just the one. So you're both a designer and an artist. And I love that kind of like that play in that space, right? Because you do have to have a different type of thinking, right? Like the designer has to be, like I say this a lot, like design is for them, art is for me.
Yeah. Right? I like that. Yeah.
So I think that is, it's hard to kind of like differentiate between the two, because sometimes you want to introduce more of your artistic nuance into the design component. And then sometimes you want to just, with the art, you could be a little bit too confined by the strategy or the design, and not just unleash.
Yeah, it's a nice parallel, because I make customs for Brickman for Lego Masters every year. So I'm a bit of a Lego fanboy in the sense of like just being a 40-year-old and all the things that they do, and watching the show, and getting the opportunity to make them footwear every year is pretty rad. It is a good analogy, because like from my side, it's really easy to get overwhelmed and fall back into Sekure D when working on collabs. And if you go too far down your rabbit hole, put it this way, core shoes are most successful when they're simple and they've got 2 X's on them. Do you need shitloads of detail and color? No, like some of his best products are black with a neon green stitch and 2 green X's on them, right? It's like, how can you filter your, like, the purity of what you do into something that can be easily communicated? And I think the goal of my career, when I started and I was doing customs, I was painting other people's artwork. I was painting like Redeemer from Spawn on the side of a shoe, or Batman, and like I was like, nah, you know what? Like, I'm not building a personal identity here. I'm just amplifying IP from everybody else, and like I'm no better than anyone else. Like, and then I literally went through a process of borderline not selling anything for years, because I was like, what can I build my identity around? And now the Sekure D identity is like 7 to 10 prints that I use in pretty much every product I design, my use of color, and my presentation. I think that because you'll almost never see my logo on anything, because I try and design the products that I create in a way that you don't need to see my signature or logo. To me, that's like the ultimate form of an artist, is like you see it and you go, oh, that's Maddie's, like, or that's Cause, or whatever. Like, I don't want you to have to look for a logo. And I think that being able to distill that into my career then gives me this suite of skills to be able to go, okay, I can just apply this to this, and then this is like the corporate version of this. It's still me, but that will be mass applied and mass marketed. And I don't need to go down this like rabbit hole of drawing an exploded transformer that facilitates all my patterns into this incredibly detailed shoe that people probably aren't going to have the confidence to wear because it's so overboard.
So that was a conscious decision?
Yeah, 100%. And I literally got to a point where I thought about it with such a formula that every one of my patterns can be built on Illustrator. Yeah.
Like a repeat pattern.
Almost a repeat pattern, but at least I've built a big mock version of the patterns that I can apply to artworks, or, you know, because you get like
just
a digital
concept development.
Yeah, so you get digital files when you're doing a collab, right? So they'll send you a digital, you know, Puma Suede or Air Force One or whatever. And yeah, I literally have built like giant swatches of my patterns now. It was a conscious decision as I was developing that style to be able to translate it digitally, and that was like early 2000s.
Yeah, with artists, I think that the ultimate goal is to be able to really tap into your intuition and to lean into something that is uniquely yours.
Yeah.
Right? So for you, you've identified some of the marks that you make that are uniquely yours, so you can lean on them to say that my artistry can be expressed with certain designs, certain marks, certain kind of patterns.
Yep.
Did you land on those, I guess, through a particular process of refinement, or did you have to actively be like, I want something that is uniquely mine?
Yeah, the second one. So there was a big period of time where I just watched Donnie Darko every day and got drunk. And that period of time, I was just drawing. For me, quickly, like, I have finance and IT degrees. Like, I have no art history in my growing up. The only experience with art I had prior to customizing sneakers was graffiti. Like, there's no education or real interest until I got markers with acetone in them when I was like 15. So, allegedly. So, I think it was really about me finding art was then also like trying to distill who like I wanted to be as well. So interestingly, I haven't really communicated it super broadly, although I do have it completed. I actually wrote a short story and created this like world of these characters and this like post-apocalyptic world, and everything I designed has come from that story and has like a connection to that story. So it started off as like a lucid dream that I was just like free writing that I've refined over many, many, many years. It has a world filled with like never before seen characters, full factions, like a complete like back history. So every pattern, like when I came up with the Carnage pattern, it's because of a toxic goo that came from this thing in this story. And I was like, what would that look like? And now for 15 years, I've been painting that print. And like, it was somewhat inspired by the tears in Spawn's cape, but then it was like really tied back to this story. So I was like, when I was trying to define this style and like being like, what can I be as Sekure D? Like, what's my thing? I was really interested with not working in a bank and using my career and being an individual. And I'm a huge space nerd. So I got super stuck into like robotics and tech and space. And this story is really focused on that. So my first print that like got really famous was like a overlapping robot arm print. And then the Carnage print is from like the toxic waste from the factories that make these robots in this story. And like, so everything ties back to that. So I think, you know, without going through a pure version of how to like paint with oils and like do all these things that would, you know, educate you about art history and why or where, my version was creating this narrative, like borderline graphic novel that was like the Sekure D universe. And then everything I make is inspired by that or tied back to that.
Dude, there's so much of your work that is, I guess, like cross-pollinating and collaborative, right? Like, it's not really, you're not tapping into one particular source. You know, there's all these different mediums and there's all these different influences that are coming together. I love that idea of having written a story and using that as the basis of a visual aesthetic. I love that, man. I'm wondering whether or not that's something that more people should do, visual artists should do, by instead of just painting or clicking buttons and trying to create something visual to land in a particular aesthetic, maybe they just step outside of that and start exploring other mediums, like picking up an instrument, picking up a camera, or even just writing. I love that. I want to use that.
So like it doesn't, I think to someone listening to that, you're like, well, does that create a boundary that you can't like grow beyond? And like for me, the retort to that is like, no, but it gives me an anchor point. Like it keeps me in my universe. So you're never going to see me try and paint a picture of Tupac on a pair of shoes. I can't, it's not Sekure D. It doesn't make sense for me. It's not in my universe. It doesn't exist. But could I paint like a really like mech'd out pattern filled version of something that looks like him, that would be like futuristic, that would be created by these characters in that world? Like, well, that's how I would do it.
That sounds insane.
Yeah. But like, I can already see it in my head. Like I've already, like in that 5 seconds, I've got that picture of like Tupac in my head and I know exactly what it would look like. But that's just how my brain worked. And that's because, in that period of time where I decided this was what I wanted to do, I didn't have any friends that were artists. I read art books, tried to balance a semi-drunk equilibrium every day while watching movies, listening to music, and like reading as much as I can, and like reading graphic novels and comic books. And I realized in my like 30s that I outlined everything in a black outline because like comic books were my art, So you have like, I just basically learned by osmosis, and then I've just been able to put it together in a way that makes sense and is authentically me.
So the decision to create something that was authentically you was a conscious decision, but then you tapped into resources that were subconscious.
Exactly. I would say that like when I make a like, I don't know what I've made shoes for every superhero ever. Like that's my shoe, although it's like inspired by that character. It's my interpretation. So the way that I would approach that, for example, is someone's like, Maddie, I want Batman Jordan 6s. Awesome. I go, how can I make a Sekure D shoe that Batman would wear with the bat suit? So it's not, you know what I mean? So like that's always like my approach to that blending of everything. But then if you let me go free, like, so I've done 3 solo shows. I've been in over 100 group shows. Like I've been in museums and stuff. Like when that's my version of me, it's robotic and graffiti. And that's like my home base, and it's very bold and colorful, and it's the characters from that universe, and it's so different to what I do in the shoes. But if I sat down and explained to you how they're the same, it makes perfect sense. I just don't need everyone to know the story, because the story is like mine, and that's what I pull from. Like a few people on your podcast in the past know the story or parts of it, and I've torn it like about whether or not I animate it or illustrate it or put it out. And I'm sure at some point in time I'll actually end up releasing it. But it's not written a way that's for other people. It's written like I'm talking to myself, if that makes sense.
Fuck, I really like that, man. I really, really like that. I'm wondering, like, that also then just gives you an opportunity to just push that creativity, especially if you're going to be writing something that's based in fiction, right?
Yep.
Because I think that, like, for me personally, a lot of the influence that I take is from other people speaking wisdom and truths from the reality that they perceive. So it's not anything that is pushing the boundaries of reality too far, right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of the lens. It's just the lens that they see it, and I'm trying to learn from that, much like this conversation.
Yeah.
But then I'm wondering, like, how much can we just take in, and how much of the shit that we do can be influenced by nonfiction? And I think that will help you push things much further, to an infinite degree. And then that goes back to a few conversations I've had. I've had this Liam Sardea, he's a philosopher of creativity, and he spoke about, just like leaning into sublime and trying to create sublime experiences. And part of that is just to create like a child, right? To remove the labels and just to play and to not be too confined, especially to reality as we perceive. I really like the idea of letting your inner self be influenced by fiction to the point where you're creating a reality or a narrative or a universe that doesn't exist anywhere other than just here and here. Fuck, that's brilliant.
And it was complete accident. Like I didn't like set out with the like, hey, I'm gonna do this and this and this. Like, but
how did that come to you anyway? Not so much taking influence from the fiction, but the genesis of the fiction.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't put a lot of effort into self-reflection, if I'm honest. But I think if I was to look back at it at the time, the path that I had gone through my education, like, so I'm really good at math. Like I tutored maths. I went through my entire degree with borderline not studying and got to the end of it and was like, I just don't like this. I'm just good at it. And do I want to do something for 70 years that I'm good at that I hate? And that was my version of that, was not sitting here in a Stone Island and Puma pants. It was like sitting in a bank in a suit and, you know, maybe having more money than I do now, but like being what I probably assumed for me at least would be miserable. And I was like, okay, so I don't want to be a robot. Like, and then I was like, oh, there's this robot thing that I find really interesting. And then I found like, okay, well, if I want to be an individual, how could you like break away from like being a robot and being an individual? And I was like, well, I do graffiti. And then I was like, well, I'm a huge space nerd. And these like 3-4 little things kind of merged into one. And I came up with this story one night. I used to watch the same like 4 or 5 movies like every day, all day. Like it sounds silly when people are like, oh, I've seen a movie 50 times. People are like, bullshit. I've seen Donnie Darko way over 500 times. So I think it was like, you know, the elements of that movie then mixed into this. And I just started writing like some like little stories for these characters. And I was developing this print, which is this robot arm print. So then I was trying to be like, okay, how can I evolve this print? And then like, I just was like free writing because I didn't really know it was a thing, but I was just like, was probably drunk at the time. And I was just like writing, and then I'd go back and read it the next day. And then I'd do it again that night. Cause it got to a point where like I paint so meticulously perfect that it's not it sounds wanky, and I know, but like I literally will breathe to a point where I control my heartbeat so that my lines are perfect when I'm painting them. Right. So like it got to a point at like 11 o'clock at night that I'd drunk enough that I couldn't really do that anymore. And so I was like drawing, or I would do base work on something. And it's sort of like I was like creating this story for these characters because I wasn't a good artist. And I was like, well, what's something that like, what's a character I can have? And then I started putting the robot character in the robot arm print. And then I was like, well, how can I like evolve this? And I just started like building it and building it and building it. And yeah, it sort of became something by accident. But then now I've got this entire universe in my head. And, you know, you go, hey, can you make a Ninja Turtles Puma suede? And I go, sick. I know exactly what that would look like in my universe. No problem. I've already done the design in my head while I've just thought about it. Right? Yeah. So it's like 20 years of like development. But I then also get super like jealous of people who paint abstract and just have the best time of their lives every day. Because like I'm so meticulous. I'm the opposite. My dream is to just paint giant abstract canvases. I'd be so fucking happy doing that. But I'm such a like line nerd about like everything being perfect to the millimeter. When I painted Nate Hill's shoes, they're like the most they do look super complicated, but like
pretty painstaking.
Mate, one of the hardest shoes I've painted for the last decade. I was like, Nate, could you black and white, mate? But they're one of my favorite shoes I've ever made.
They come out real well, man.
Yeah, thank you. And I told Nate, I was like, I was like, when we had coffee and I gave them to him, I'm like, I built an entire story about that character. So this whole shoe has like an entire story, and that's the only way I can do things.
Did you consult with him that story? Because I think that he has sort of created maybe multiple stories around that character.
It was my interpretation of what his stories were, and because I assumed the character is a self-portrait, which it isn't really, it turns out. But I was like, okay, well, metaphorically, this character is...
Maybe subconsciously he doesn't realize
Yeah, because I was like, mate, like, so I'm like, metaphorically, he's facing the front because his past is behind him, and it's nothing but space behind him, which is why the space print's there, and he's looking forward, and there's like that like hypnotic pattern in the middle, which is like the artistic confusion, which is like the blur that you experience when you're trying to create something new or push through a barrier, which you have to overcome as an artist, because 99% of the time I hate my shoes until they're finished. And now, just being that like I'm so experienced, I push through to the end. Even when I don't like it halfway through, I push through because I know my skills will make it good at the end. And then at the front, it's super technical with all that line work because like that's what he's getting towards. So like that's the story of that like shoe. And that's like how I was able to come up with that structure. And knowing that Nate loves shoes and that his dream was to one day have a shoe, I created that shoe in a way that could specifically actually be released. Like I could see that shoe as a limited edition shoe. Whereas a lot of the times when I produce products for people, you can't ever make it. Like it's so over the top or so colorful. I'll use 35 colors. Or the structure isn't right for the production process. I made that specifically as a tool that maybe one day down the line, it could be like, what about that?
I thought it was a mock-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sick. And that's now I've got into the digital world. It's actually a barrier that I'm experiencing for the first time where when I post customs, people think they're ChatGPT work. And I'm like, do I need to do shitter photography? So now I've started like actually just holding it in my studio and doing like here it is, like here's the shoe and like moving it around with my hand. Because that's starting to happen now because I exist in the Web3 space and like I'm interested in NFTs and crypto and stuff. There's now this audience that sees my work and I'm confident they don't think any of the products are real.
Right.
So that's new.
It is an interesting thing to be able to show something that is that polished and that perfect, but showing it in a way to degrade that perfection.
It's almost the only reason I started making really shitty little videos of me painting. Because like I'm intentionally not trying to make those videos. It's just my phone in a tripod above my hands painting 10 different times, edited into a really shitty video that I post on my story after I post a new custom. I do that exclusively to prove they're real.
Yeah.
Not for like extra social media credits or views. It's just so like people know it's an authentic real thing.
Yeah, there's like that's a tough space to work in because like you want to be able to be so good at your craft that it is indistinguishable from something that is digitally replicated. But then at the same time that you have to also then pare it back enough or in a way to show that it is still made by hand, right? Like there is still that human element to it.
Yeah, and like, I mean, brands now, like, you know, part of what I do at a brand level is like we're working on 2027, planning for 2028. Like, you know, we work really far in advance. Using digital tools, you can go, okay, well, we've got a mock of a product. Let's just put it on an AI person. And then you go from, you know, you're 2 years ahead of where you were 3 years ago when you're like, here's a line art of a shoe that we want to sell in. What's your feedback, JD Sport? Now it's like, hey, here's the shoe in, like, it's real. Like, it's obviously not, but like materials are right, shape's right. It looks slightly off on the foot of the model, but we're 2 years ahead. And then you go, okay, so that's interesting. And then I'm doing the reverse where I'm like, hey, no, like it's a real thing, guys. Like this isn't like an AI digital thing. I do take it as a compliment though. Inevitably, although, as I said at the very start of this conversation, with yellow, it can take 14 to 20 coats for yellow to look consistent because the paint is so thin and opaque. It's painstaking. You can't tell it's not printed on the shoe or it's not a yellow shoe when you get it. You can still see the dimples in the leather that existed in the first place. That's the goal. So inevitably, I've created this burden on myself when I decided that my style, when it comes to custom footwear, is going to be indistinguishable from production. Because that's not the way for everybody.
You see that the Apple TV intro that was just released?
No.
That's just been doing the rounds. I bring this up because it actually has a lot of parallels with what you're just mentioning. So it's really something that would not have popped up on anyone's radar. It's essentially Apple TV in animated intro, right? That came out at the same time as the Coca-Cola, their Christmas campaign. The Coca-Cola, the Christmas ad, completely AI created.
Yeah, okay.
Still quite painstaking. It still took a lot of people and man hours and prompts to get it to where it was. But it I don't know, it was dog shit, in my opinion. It still looked very much AI. So that received a lot of backlash.
Yep.
Deservedly as well. Like, it's just like, if you're going to put in that much money and energy into creating an ad, get people to create it.
Especially if you're going to probably spend 50 to 100 million on marketing it globally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only to have it negatively received. Then on the other end, you had Apple that, and it was just to highlight the contrast. The Apple TV intro, where it was almost like it was a series of the logo being flicked through a series of colors and beautiful lighting. it looks like that it was created digitally, and I suppose there was a lot of digital cleanup.
Yeah.
But they actually filmed all of that, right? So they had the Apple TV logo that was made out of, I guess, like frosted glass. They had different different color light to manipulate it, and different spotlights to add the edging effects. They filmed the whole thing.
Yeah.
So what was really what was highlighted about it was that they not only showcase that intro, but they filmed them creating that intro to show behind the scenes to show how painstaking it was. No one would give a shit about it other than the fact that they could see how it was made. And it's like, wow, you guys went to like a lot of unnecessary effort, and kudos to you for doing that. So it just goes to show that we can have something that's polished, but we want to see the process, and we want to see people fucking working at it as well, not just clicking buttons and getting chat to figure it all out for us.
Yeah, we talked about like connecting to a product or a story earlier, right? And I think that like the visibility of the people doing it still creates that connection. So for me, like the proof of like authenticity and reality in a way actually connects you potentially to the product more than the 100%. Filtered product photo that you see and scroll past in a second because you've been on TikTok or Instagram for too long and you're burning your pasta and you're just continuously like dedicated to that mechanism. But I think the irony is like that unpolished content that we spoke about younger artists probably needing to create to connect and get outside of the bubble is the area of opportunity now, right?
That's the content.
Yeah,
that is the content.
Yeah.
So you are creating for that, right? Like what it looks like at the end is very much secondary to the creation process. So that's where we have to like really try to lean into and just try to find what is uniquely us, which is going to be the process, because your output could be digitally replicated.
Yeah.
It could be something that I can just type in some prompts and give something that would be equally as polished because your work is polished, right? So, and it'll be hard to be able to look at yours and to, I guess, just to put it side by side and say which one has been man-made and which one has did chat create. Like, how would you know other than the fact that you will see the behind the scenes footage?
Yeah, and I it's so funny because like that's the 2025 version. The 2010 version was going to the US or Asia and seeing fakes of my shoes everywhere.
Oh,
and,
really?
Oh, dude, yeah, I've got them at home. Like I should have almost brought them.
Oh, how flattering.
Yeah. So like they used to laser engrave my name into the side of shoes. Like there's customs I only ever made one pair of that I still own because I made them for myself that you can still buy online for $69.99.
That's crazy.
So it's like you're always going to like face that kind of like, you know, mechanism or challenge throughout the process creatively, but like you just got to like laugh about it and like move on. I don't get upset about AI like a lot of artists. I do think it's pretty fucked when, you know, artists are having like their identity co-opted, like the Studio Ghibli stuff and you know that, and even like what happened with like, you know, people can bang out stuff that's like kind of ripping off Justin's aesthetic, or, you know, if you banged all of Nate's work in and did something similar, I do hate that. I think it's fucked. But then you go, well, how can I as an artist use these tools to improve the speed of my process? And like, for example, what I've been messing around with is I go, okay, I know structurally what I want to create here. Hey, give me 15 versions of a green, yellow Air Force One blocked out. So that's not creative work. That's just going to save me 25 minutes. So like I'm trying to figure out how I can improve myself using it rather than becoming a dinosaur that doesn't know how to use a TV remote. Yeah. You know?
It is a matter of then bringing it in the fold of the process rather than the outcome. Yeah. It's funny that you touch on Justin's one because his is an interesting case study because he was definitely something that was heavily influenced. Like he influenced a whole movement.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like it's a Justin Maller aesthetic in and of itself.
Agreed.
Right? That kind of like cascaded throughout design and digital art space for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And I think that it will be very easy to punch in some prompts and just to say, do this in this style.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about, like, he and I have talked about it. Like, yeah, I mean, that stuff's fucked. I think That's where, though, like at a corporate level or an NFT level or a consultancy level, you're not buying the finished product, you're buying the person, right? And when you get someone like Justin, you get 20 years of experience, you get a pioneer's mentality, you have someone who knows not how to create an artwork, but why to create the artwork. And that is something that's very hard to replicate. Something that you can't do digitally with AI right now is create that, like, I would say, perfect blend of those elements, right?
No,
I always say I'm not a good artist. I'm really good at fixing things you never know I fucked up. I think the confidence for me as an artist is by not going to art school, I've failed 1,000 times. And now it's not that I'm a better artist. I just know I can fix it, right? And Justin's experience would be, if he's stuck, he's got a entire suite of tools that he knows he can rely on over decades of experience to go, no, I can create this, or I could push it this way, and I can tailor it this way, and we're getting this feedback, now we can alter it. And like, that human element is still intangible, and it is also important, because if you are employing someone to do that rather than creating something exclusively for a commercial endeavor, you're co-signing that person to that product, right? And there's still a lot of value in that.
And that's the same, we can just loop it all the way back to the start when we asked about, like, what is it about sneaker culture? And when you were saying that, that you have these knockoffs of your shoes, you could have a shoe that is the same materials, the same form, same cut as a Jordan, but it's not the same, right? So, you could have a Sekure D shoe that looks very closely to yours.
Off-White have a Jordan 1. It's just not a Jordan 1. It's got a different logo, for example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As in, like, it's not...
It's a Jordan 1. It just has a different logo.
Not a collaboration, or it is
No, it's just a knockoff. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. Yeah, cool. But it's not. It's just not a Jordan 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There is that intrinsic value that we place in it, right? A sneaker that's going to go for $2,000, $3,000, $10,000, right? Like, that is because of something that we have bestowed, intrinsically given that shoe, and we've just agreed that this particular one is worth that. It is basically just a bit of rubber, a bit of leather, and laced up.
Yeah, Woody said something in his discussion with you that I always say as well, as like, we're not saving lives, we're selling shoes, right? And I'm not curing cancer, I'm painting a canvas. But it has worked for me best my entire career when I know that it means something to me that I'm making, because then I know it'll mean something to someone else. And then if you can stay authentically within that line, and that's something that you're trying to connect to whatever it is you're doing creatively, it will find a home and it will find an audience. When you don't have that and you're just commercially creating for anticipation of success, I don't think you find it.
Ooh. Not in the same way.
Not in the same way.
Yeah. I think that's the difference between, when someone releases their first album, where there's an expression of...
It's taken 20 years to write all those songs. Yeah.
They get signed, and then they're going to pump up another 5 in the next 5 years.
But if you didn't have that first album, would the second or third one even matter? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess, like, I'm not saying I've loved everything I've ever made. And, being an artist, there was years where I had no income and I was definitely taking jobs I didn't want to do. But I think inevitably, overarchingly at least, it comes from that place. And that's why I invested so much time in the identity side of what I do. Yeah.
That's key. That really is key. And that's something that I think that we should all kind of give more attention to as well, is not hiding behind the work, taking the mask off.
I literally did it. I remember the day I did it. Like, I even got like it's a great story. I won't go into the detail, but like, the guy who makes the WWE wrestling masks in Japan made my Prowler mask from Spider-Man that was my anonymous mask I used to wear to events and stuff. And I very consciously remember the decision to take the mask off. I wasn't really doing graffiti anymore. It wasn't really a good marketing tool anymore. I just liked not being bothered at things. And a friend of mine said to me, if you can't be the face of your brand, how can you expect other people to? And I was like, that's a really good counter argument to being anonymous is cool. That discussion, like that weekend, I went to an event where I was doing an appearance for Foot Locker or something. First, I think I was judging an art competition. And I rocked up as Mathew Fabris, and they thought Sekure D was rocking up, and they're like, "What the fuck's going on?"
You?
Literally, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm the guy you're looking for. So yeah, I remember that very specifically.
Do you feel naked?
Dude, it was so weird, man. But I can tell you what, my mask had it had mesh over the eyes, no mouth hole, like full superhero mask. That is really hard to be in for like 6 hours.
Gross.
Yeah, it's not great. It looks sick. I thought you still think it looks sick. Actually, the guy who drew the Prowler comics for Spider-Man in the 90s drew a portrait of me as Prowler.
Oh, cool.
That I've got framed in the house, and I have some of the original like artwork from the comic books and stuff in the house. So like that all sort of ties into everything as well. And yeah.
Oh fuck! What a journey, dude.
Dude, my house. I need to get a bigger house so I can actually put all this stuff out. It's just like sitting in boxes, but
Yeah, it was really cool just to see how much stuff,
yeah.
like colorful stuff.
Yeah.
Nah, dude, it's mad.
Organized chaos. I'm very lucky I have a partner that is okay with it. Yeah.
That's what she bought into.
She knew. Yeah, she saw that. She saw the house.
Like,
so,
oh, we got a nerd.
we could run or we could stay.
Yeah, we got a full blown nerd here.
Yeah. Hey, nerds are fun.
Nerds are fun, man. That's all I do. I speak with a bunch of nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all nerds. What's happening at the minute? What do you got on the horizon?
So there's always the corporate stuff. So off to Germany again and Paris for Fashion Week in Jan. At a Sekure D level, customs, finalizing the draft framework of I want to do a digital exhibition next year. So creating a body of work for that at the moment. And a few bits and pieces I probably can't talk about because of NDAs. But yeah, look, I'm always busy, man. Like that's the thing. I'm very lucky now that if I don't have a gig, I can create something that I want to make. But the majority of my time these days are just built up doing things that I want to do. And I think it's taken me 20 years to get to that. Sekure D isn't far from being like a 25th anniversary. If I had one dream thing to do over the next 2 or 3 years, it would be a anthology of like the first 25 years of my career in a book, and get like some peers to write little notes and create like a hardcover book. I've been in enough books. I'd love to have my own. Oh, and I've made a set of sneaker cards I got to release, which is like a collectible history of my most high profile customs. I'm busy, man. Like there's a lot going on. So
we kind of like, this is something that we don't really give enough love to, is like when we say that we're busy, it's a different sort of busy. This is like, it's just, it feels different when you choose that busy as well. Like right now, I was just talking to my wife just yesterday, saying that I think this is the busiest I've ever been in my whole life. But then it's like every single thing that I'm doing right now, I've chosen to do. All the deadlines I have, I've set for myself. And it's like, fucking why? But then it's at the same time, like, because you love it, man.
You love it. And like, you know, it's always work, right? I think there's this glamour attached to creativity that would imply that it's not hard, which is the complete opposite. Like, you know, it drove me down a dark place for a long time. And I think that we choose to do it because we love it. But I think the misconception that means that it's easy or fun isn't always true.
No.
It is hard. It is filled with self-doubt, insecurity. But, you know, the reason I think I started doing graffiti was that when I took a photo of what I did and I had that and I could show it to people, I was so much more proud of that than I was of perfectly balancing a spreadsheet. You know, and then it was the creative output, the proof that you existed, the proof that you've put something out into the universe that then, you know, sits there forever and can be seen for however long. Like that's the reason I think I got into the creative side rather than the, you know, the banking finance side. And then that's what I chase. So yeah, it's hard and it's, you know, but it also has super upsides. And if I'm sitting there at 11 o'clock at night watching Donnie Darko painting a pair of sneakers, I'd rather be doing that than sitting in Excel.
Yeah, I mean,
for me,
honestly, there are still times I'm like,
I still requires a lot of organization.
Yeah, it's still a lot of Excel stuff.
Yeah.
No, dude, I appreciate you jumping on, dude. Like, this is really serendipitous how our worlds have just collided.
Yeah,
like this. It's coming at such an interesting time, And just to see how our networks have kind of just meshed and how much overlap there was, it blows my mind that this didn't happen sooner.
Yeah. Thank you for reaching out. It was crazy. I went through. I'm like, damn. I think I know like every third person that's ever been on here. But yeah, really good to connect and have a chat. Thank you for having me on. It's always fun to talk about this stuff for me, and I actually don't do this very much at all. So thank you for the platform.
Oh man, my pleasure. Mathew Fabris, Sekure D. Thank you very much.
Cheers, man.